Tutorial 1. Configuring InstaCode. Every locksmith has slightly different requirements of InstaCode, so InstaCode has made it as configurable as possible. In this tutorial, I will show you how to configure your key cutting machines and set your preferences so they best suit you. I'm starting with a fresh installation of InstaCode. The first thing I'm going to do is change my measurement units to imperial. I do this by clicking on the Setup menu at the top of InstaCode, then moving the mouse down and clicking the fourth menu item, and setting the display units to 1/1000th of an inch. As with many of the preferences, the full implications of this setting will not be obvious until later in the program. Next, I'll configure my preferences. I do this by clicking on the Setup menu at the top of InstaCode and selecting the first option, Preferences. This opens the Preferences window, which contains the following 5 tabs: General, Printer, Manufacturing, Key Blanks, and Transponders. Let us look at the options in the General tab. Show user entered notes with the series search results. This will allow you to see the notes that you have previously added to a series prior to opening the series details. The notes are shown at the bottom of the search results screen and are relevant to the selected series. Show key blanks with the search results. This is on by default, as viewing the relevant key blanks can be invaluable when making your selections. However, with a slower PC, it can cause a reduction in performance, and you may find it beneficial to turn this option off. Clear the search parameters when returning to the search screen. Some users prefer to start with a clean slate every time they want to do a search. As I like to be able to go back and modify my searches if need be, I'll leave this option off. Clear returns from other searches to series search. This option will set InstaCode to always return to the series search after a client or key blank search. I personally prefer this option on, but I'll leave it off for the duration of these tutorials, just so it's easier to follow what we're doing. Show user entered notes first when the series is displayed. When you open the details of a key series, InstaCode will initially display the Notes tab if you have custom notes against that key series. For these tutorials, we'll turn this option off. Which card numbering system should be used for search results? Since locksmiths in different markets refer to space and depth information by different card number systems, InstaCode gives you the option of viewing the reference that you are most familiar with. As I am personally familiar with the HPC 1200 card reference, I will use the drop-down list and select the HPC 1200. InstaCode will now show me the relevant HPC card number for each series on the search results screen. We also have the option to create a password to access InstaCode. Since this PC is secure in my workshop, I'm not going to worry about this. The Printer tab. The settings here are fairly self-explanatory, but it is important to note that the printing of machine information, such as the HPC cards, is configured individually for each machine. The Manufacturing tab. Laser cut standard keys when the series is best cut that way. This affects the default option when downloading to electronic key machines that support the function. The option to override this default is given each time you go to cut an applicable key. The Key Blanks tab. The primary function of this tab is to sort and select the key blank manufacturers that are most relevant to you, but there is also 2 options relating to original key blanks at the bottom. I am now going to select the brands that I use. I'm doing this by checking the checkboxes next to the brands I want. This results in only these brands being shown in the search result and series details, Unless none of these brands produce a relevant key blank, then and only then InstaCode will display the relevant blanks from all manufacturers despite my selections here. Next, I'm going to sort the blanks into an order that will place my preferred manufacturer at the top of the results. I do this by right-clicking on the list of manufacturers and click on Move Selected to Top from the menu that appears. Now I move the scroll bar to the top, and here I can see my selected manufacturers, but they're still not in the order that I want them in. So by clicking on each one to highlight, then clicking on Move Up or Move Down buttons, I can move them into my preferred order. Now that I'm happy with my preferred key blank and order selection, I'm going to move to the next tab, Transponders. These lists control the order that the transponder parts are displayed on the Transponder Parts tab in the details of a series. As I deal primarily with original transponders, I'm going to move the original parts to the top of my list by selecting the manufacturers and using the Move Up and Move Down buttons. Because I'm lucky enough to have access to all of these transponder machines, I'm just going to leave them in alphabetical order. Now that all my preferences are set, I can click on OK to save my changes. Now the last thing I need to do is configure my key machines. I do this by clicking on the Setup menu at the top of InstaCode and selecting the second option, Machines. As this is a new installation, there are no machines configured yet, and InstaCode automatically gives me an impressive list of machines to select from. I have an ITL 950 in my shop, and an HPC 1200 in my work van. Since this is the shop PC, firstly, I'm going to configure the ITL. I select ITL on the list and click OK. Now I can configure the exact setting for my ITL. I can change the description and individualize it, which is great if you have multiples of the same type of machine in your workshop. I'm just going to name mine ITL 950. I select the COM port from the drop-down list. This list is dynamically generated by InstaCode. So if your USB adapter's COM port doesn't show, then you're most likely having some issues with the drivers for the USB adapter. Confirm the model of ITL and communication speed. The options here will vary depending on the machine you are configuring, but it is all fairly standard stuff that your machine's distributor should be able to easily answer. So now I confirm my options and then click OK. I can now see the list of my key machines. There is only one at the moment. So now I'm going to add another, an HPC 1200, so I can print cards for the machine in my work van. I click Add, select my machine, which is the HPC 1200, on the list, and then click OK. I'm going to rename the machine so that my apprentice doesn't become confused when I ask him to print an HPC 1200 card. Since I can't download to an HPC 1200, there is no COM port setting to configure. But I can configure the printer I want to use, and click OK. All machine configurations can be changed in the future just by clicking on the machine and then clicking on Properties. But I'm done configuring my machines, so I can click on OK and close the machines window. My InstaCode is ready to go. Join me in the next tutorial video as we look at some different ways we can search for key code information.